Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Bump Draft and Pray podcast, where for 1 week, we only turn left, never turn right. Welcome. Yeah, I am your host, Pedro Barbosa, and with me I have my good friend, Earl Goddard. Hello, girl.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm tired. Second podcast. I just had 15 minutes between them, so yeah.
You're mad, man.
Yeah, but yeah, let's talk about turning left. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about NASCAR and the title decider of the 2022 season. But before that, let's please talk again about last week and Martinsville. I've read and heard a few more things about the weekend and what happened there, and I have a little bit more of an understanding, not the why we all knew, but how it was possible to happen. What happened. So, yeah, do you want to set the scene? Do you want you to explain it?
Ross needed... Basically, he needed to beat Denny Hamlin to progress through to the last four for the championship and race for the championship the next week at Phoenix. I think going into the last lap, he was in P10 and Denny Hamlin was, I think, in P5, P6 or P5, somewhere around there. And at that point, Denny Hamlin was through to the championship race. And then start the final lap, and Ross says to his spotter, we need two. And he proceeded to go down the back straight, hook fifth gear, which you don't use at Martinsville, and bury his foot on the throttle, and he didn't lift, and he ran it round the wall all along, round the outside of the track basically, and he beat Denny Hamlin by half a fender. But he got through into the championship race off, and his fame and notoriety has gone through the roof for it, because I think no one could believe what was actually happening. And then secondly, everyone was just like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely been a prominent talking point the last week at our little community as well. So yeah,
he'll go down in NASCAR history. His name is now secure in history. He doesn't have to win anything, but he'll always be Martinsville 2022.
Yeah, the Wall Rider. Ross, the Wall Rider Chastain. So, yeah, one of the main things was what exactly you talked about. It being a track where you don't use fifth gear, only fourth gear. It's a short track. So you don't use, and he had that extra gear to use. That's one of the main points that enabled him to keep the momentum going, because he had that extra speed to carry through the corner to enable him for that work to work. So he needed 2 more points. He didn't need to finish ahead of Denny Hamlin. He needed 2 more points to finish ahead of him. So, but in this case, he was too far away to do anything normally in a regular way. So yeah, that's one of the main points, because he had that extra gear and extra speed to make it work. The other thing, it's the car, 100% the car, because this has been attempted before. I'm not a NASCAR follower. I might become one, but I never was a NASCAR follower. But this has been attempted before. But in a normal track where you already do the corner in top gear, or you just, like in Phoenix this weekend, when you're not fuel saving, you just shift down, and now they shift down because it's a sequential gearbox. I don't think it compensated that much in previous years to shift down, because it takes a little bit more time to do that. But it's just a quick shift down just to get a little bit more momentum out of the corner. You don't gain that much. It's a little bit different. You're already at a very high rate of speed on that corner. And in Phoenix it didn't work because the walls actually go to the right before they go left. So it will never work on Phoenix. That's the other thing.
No.
You needed just that perfect straight line into the corner. And the way the car shape helps a lot as well. And the other main thing is the tires. They are different for this year. I didn't know that. I knew that the rims were a little bit different because of the wheel gun thing. It's like
they're using single instead of the 6 or 8 lug nuts like they used to do.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the traditionalists got very upset about, because we don't want a single one. We want how we've always had it since forever.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think it was on Dale Jr.'s podcast, was about the fact that it was more the stub axle that was touching the wall and running the wall and the body, and not the tyres, because he didn't have any punches. Yeah. You think to run that wall and not have, he should have had 2 right side punches, flats and a destroyed side. So yeah, a lot to do with, it was sort of the perfect storm in terms of the right angle, the right track conditions, no one in front of him, deciding to do it. The car and everything just worked out. Because like someone said, it's unlikely to happen again, because everyone's going to be looking for it and everyone's going to cover the corner.
Yeah, basically. And the tires, actually, the profile is a little bit differently, so the tire doesn't bend as much as the old tires did. So, like you said, there's no contact patch between the tires and the wall on that occasion.
It's almost like they've got a sports car tire on versus an old sports car tire, big bulbous thing.
I don't know if the rim got bigger like we did in Formula 1, but it's like in Formula 1 almost exactly the same happened, because there's less sidewall on the tire, so it doesn't stick out as much as previous years as well.
Yeah, they've basically gone to low profiles. Super obviously tire construction has changed so much these days that they're coming up with all these fancy ideas, but I think it's good. I know there's a lot of people that don't like the next gen car. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it as well. I like to drive it in the sim. I don't like when you try and bump draft me, because I always end up on the wall.
You've got to learn how to do it properly. That's the problem.
But I know how to do it properly, because when I bump draft you, we don't end up on the wall.
Well, there you go.
We just gain speed, so it's me bump drafting you. That's the solution. So
it's so wrong.
Yeah. So it was massive hype for this week's race. So I think this playoff is a new thing, isn't it? They didn't do it last season.
I'm not sure. I don't think so. It was a bit they've been changing quite a lot of things recently there at NASCAR, haven't they? So
yeah, and I'm a novice on NASCAR. I always thought the Xfinity series was the top one and not the other way around, but apparently it's the other way around. The Cup series is the one that they all really want to win, basically.
Yeah, that used to be back in the day. It used to be the Winston Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This is like going back a long time. But yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't think
Xfinity's their GP or F2.
Yeah, still uses the old car with a manual gearbox and all that stuff. Yeah, so basically their F3, F2, and F1, it's the trucks, then the Xfinity, and then the Cup cars. So yeah.
Prove yourself in the trucks to get a shot at Xfinity.
Yeah. And actually, I heard a little bit Ross Chastain talking about that and how he had to work to even get to the Cup Series. So it was like his breakout year where he has a competitive car in the Cup Series. So yeah, it's a fairy tale story.
Yeah, I think he said 2 years previous to that at Martinsville, he was 7 laps down by the end of the race because they were just
nowhere
struggling. And then Trackhouse, obviously, I think Trackhouse bought Chip Ganassi's NASCAR outfit, and they've slowly been, I suppose, coming to NASCAR with a different attitude to the traditionalists and their way of going racing, and it seems to be working. They kind of got famous, I think, last year and more this year for they were winning on the road courses, and they had good cars, and it was sort of like you want a Trackhouse car for the road course, but they weren't really at the show when it came to the bread and butter, which is the oval stuff. But they've definitely got their stuff. They're up there now consistently.
Yeah, definitely. What they were not was qualifying for this for this week, because Ross Chastain, after going P5 and doing that amazing move in Martinsville, qualified 25th. Yeah. But
then NASCAR is one of those events where, as you've seen, even in sim, you can qualify 25th. It doesn't guarantee you're going to finish there. A lot can be made up, especially if you've got a good car.
Yeah,
but as we'll find out, I think it was. I mean, I don't. Obviously, his other rivals, the main one being Joey Logano, who put it on pole and was just. We've talked before about turning up at the track and the car's just dialed in, and you don't really have to do much to it. I think that's how Joey hit the track this week at Phoenix. He was just on fire from first practice. He was just fast.
Yeah, and I in the end of the race, I actually had this on mind, that almost like we talk about in F1, from the difference between, let's say, Ferrari and Red Bull, where Ferrari has a very good car on the qualifying and then not that good car on the race. It seemed like the Ford of Joey Logano struggled a little bit on the end of the stint, so setup might be have a little bit to do with that. So it's being able to fire up the tires really quickly and doing a very qualifying lap, and being able, like it did on, like, even from lap 1 of the race, he was able to have a gap in the beginning of the stint, and then everyone else started to catch up a little bit. That seemed to be a little bit of a pattern with him the entire race.
Yeah, what you tend to notice in the NASCAR races, you'll have the drivers who set their cars up actively to, my car's going to be awesome for the last 6 laps of a stage, and they just try to much like F1 and tyre saving and fuel saving. They're just trying to get through the race, not be involved in a wreck, not have any issues, and just stay in touch. And then they know that come lap 6, 6 to go, they're going to be flying. And the pace difference, especially when you're doing super speedways at 180, 200 miles an hour, if your car's working, you're 20 mile an hour faster, it makes a difference, and you quickly get to the time. So it's very much a tactical chess of what your car, be it the Ford, the Chevy, or the Toyota, which it's liking that day. And it might be the Chevys have got to go for early pace and sacrifice later pace, and also how good your crew chief is.
Yeah,
because the amount of it's quite scary that when I don't think that if they still do the wedge like they used to in the old cars and just turn the wedge, but they'll turn the wedge a quarter of an inch.
What is the wedge?
So it's like on the roll bar, but it lifts, it changes the pitch of the car slightly, and it basically I think they call it in iRacing on the IndyCar the weight jacker,
a little bit like rake in Formula 1.
Yeah, but it's only on the outside right.
Oh, okay.
So basically, you can make the car turn in tight or loose, as they like to say in NASCAR. You can basically give it more front end or give it more rear, but they can do that a quarter of an inch, and it can find 2 seconds in a car. It's just phenomenal. And also tire pressure adjustments. They do half a PSI pressure adjustments.
Yeah, you might be onto something, because I know you watch mainly the highlights, but I actually watched the entire race, and they were around the pit stops, and the first pit stops coincided with the finishing the stages.
Yep.
And the crew chiefs were talking a lot to drivers and asking what was the balance, and they were able to do something. I didn't actually understand what they were doing, if it was just tire pressures, but yeah.
Yeah, they'll be doing pressures, and then they say, I'm not sure what they've got in the next gen cars in terms of they will have some form of adjustment that they do, and it's used to see it was done by a guy who used to run around the back of the car and had a giant like spanner they used to stick in through the rear windshield, and that went onto a cog which adjusted the suspension. So it was very Heath Robinson back in the day, but it was very effective. I know they've got it in sim now, and they're calling it the weight jacker, and it allows you just to raise and lower the suspension on one corner for ovals. And it's a huge tool, because if you can understand it and drive to the characteristics, you can. I know they do it a lot at Indianapolis for the 500, that they're changing the car constantly through the stint as the tyres are starting. If you end up pushing too much and you're overheating the fronts, you can adjust it a little bit to take the pressure off the fronts and let them cool a bit, and then you go back. So it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
At 200 miles an hour. And that's why you get these super speedway even in NASCAR, you get the super speedway specialists, because they know how to make the car work and how to make the car last.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we have to learn that for next year's Indy 500.
I've already been played with it, but in one of the sims that we shall not mention its name. But we're definitely going to have to get it sorted for the 500. Well, both of them, Daytona and Indy.
Yeah, I might do both of them next year, because there's actually one reason for us to even. It's not just the move that Ross Chastain did last week. We've both been toying around with ovals in sim, so yeah, our interest is growing and growing and growing.
Dragged you in.
Yeah, you dragged me in. So yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was kind of a boring race. It was not that full of excitement like I imagine it, because I've watched here and then bits of NASCAR when it was on the television, and it was always very eventful. This one was not really. It was basically strategy, only strategy.
Yeah, I think they were, because of what Ross did. I think so many people were expecting, and NASCAR, rightly so, their PR department went straight into the big championship final. And I mean, yeah, Logano was struggling towards the end of stages, but I felt like he had it under control. I think he had something for anything they threw at them. He had a response.
Yeah, we're going to get to that part of the race, but I think on that part there was here and there one or two things that could have contributed to a better finish, let's say.
Okay.
The one interesting incident that we had, and we can play whose fault it was, but apparently
Ross on Chase Elliott.
Yeah, the Ross on Chase Elliott. Like in my experience, if I was in my road course experience, I would say that Ross was 100% at fault, but everyone seemed to think that no, it was Elliott's fault.
Yeah, they're saying Chase pulled down on it. They're saying he had a quarter panel in, and once you've got that, you can't turn down on someone. It's sort of the NASCAR rule, and he was well within his right to keep his foot in and turn him round. I think it's the different thing is we both come from a European style of racing, and you know, you've got to be alongside front tyres to roll hoop or front tyres to centre of the car to basically claim that I'm going through, and it's now the other guy's causing the issue. Whereas obviously in the NASCAR world, it's a very insular world. Their belief is you don't do that, and if you do, I'm going to take you out. And the fact that everyone has gone, yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's going to be a learning curve in Sim.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of unwritten rules, if that's a phrase.
Yeah. I don't know, it's very interesting. It was, like I said, it was kind of a boring race compared to what I expected, but it was very, very interesting race on that part. And that incident, I was like, as soon as it happened, I was like, man, Ross screwed it. And then the commentators just went, yeah, he turned in on him. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's happening here? So,
did you even, I don't know if you heard the radio from Chase saying, did I do something wrong? You know, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? And Sparta going, nah, they just, you know how they race, they just race that way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's weird for me.
We know they hit you, and it's what they do. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so yeah, that was Elliott's championship hopes done. Not that he ever, like, it seemed to be the slowest of the four contenders. He was going backwards, always backwards. Ross was the one that was coming through, basically, mainly on the pit stops. He and the commentator was saying that his pit crew had been amazing all year, and yeah, he was gaining like 2-3 spots per pit stop. So yeah, it was very nice job until they didn't do it. 2 stops from the end, they completely messed up the pit stop, and he went. Yeah, and that might actually been the first part of his like the end of his championship hopes, because he went way back. He lost like almost 10 places or whatever it was on that part. Yeah. But then, mercifully, we had another caution. The last one, it was a crash way back. Nothing to do with them. And then he had a good stop again, and Joey Logano had a bad stop. So it was his time. Not really bad, just average stop. And he lost a couple of places, and Ross gained a lot. And they started separated 4 spots on the last restart. But yeah, Joey just was able to, on the restart, and Ross had a good restart as well. He gained places, but Joey was able to then, after that initial part where it was just positioning the car in the right place to pass, then when it got to being able to pass on pace alone, Joey just was able to go, and Ross wasn't really able to follow him like he hoped for. So yeah, it was maybe a little bit too little too late for him to be able to catch him.
Yeah, that's pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? It was close but no cigar.
Yeah. How crazy were those restarts with going completely past the apron and just bypassing half a track?
It's just, it's again another sign of NASCAR and just their own rules of. Can you imagine that in F1? The track limits are the white lines, except there you can do what you want. And I mean, but you could see there was the people that went, no, I'm going to just run the high line and not risk jumping the apron. But yeah, it did look like a sim when you watch those, because it's like, oh, they're not going on the track.
Yeah, but it looks really sketchy to do that, because when you go from the track to the apron, the car jumps and goes on the ground, and it can actually being just sat on the diffuser. So it looks like very, very tricky to do that. And actually, Ross had a big moment in one of those.
Yeah, bounced up on him. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be doing that. But they obviously, it's the age of things. Someone does it, so everyone else does it. And
yeah, but in normal lap time, it actually lost you time, because you then compromise the next straight.
But yeah, it was a restart trick, wasn't it?
Yeah. So from what we've been saying, you might have guessed that Joey Logano won the race, and because he won the race, he won the championship, his second championship, and for the first time, the same team won the NASCAR championship, the Cup Series championship, and IndyCar, Team Penske were able to do it on the same year. I seem to remember hearing that that's never been done on the same year. There's been teams that won IndyCar and won the Cup Series, but on different years. This was the first time that exactly the same team won both. So yeah.
Yeah, no, Penske's definitely had a good season this year, all round.
All round. Yeah, very good, very nice. So it's been very interesting. We might start and cover NASCAR a little bit more. Not everything, because they race every week, basically.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. We needed to get full-time jobs doing this if we were to follow all of the NASCAR ones. I can't imagine those guys that do the podcast about the trucks and Xfinity and Cup Series all at once. Yeah, it's...
Honestly, is it not 34 or 35 races?
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of races like that.
It's,
Yeah, it's just too much. Let's say too much. So yeah, interesting, and we'll definitely keep doing occasionally some races when there's no F1 or when we feel like it. We might do actually a few ones, but we're not, in spite of the name of the podcast, we're not going to to become a NASCAR podcast.
I would just do a bit of highlights now and again if there's something interesting.
Yeah, like someone wall riding, like it was Gran Turismo on the outside. So yeah, from NASCAR to F1, I think we just have two little battles that still are interesting left in Formula One, which are, I don't even care that much about the second place on the driver championship, to be completely honest, but the second place in the constructors championship and the fourth place I think are a little bit more interesting, just because of money, because the constructors championship is the one that really cares about, is interesting for the teams about money and about, let's say, being able to carry something into the next season. So we have Ferrari and Mercedes battling for second place, and Alpine and McLaren going for the fourth place. So let's start with the first two, Ferrari and Mercedes. They are separated by 40 points, if I'm not mistaken. With the updates that seem to work on the Mercedes and Ferrari seeming to
disappearing.
Disappearing. Do you think it's something that we expect?
Yeah, I think you should. I think Mercedes are going to come past and pip them at the line, as it were, because Ferrari just seem falling off. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
they've just lost pace, and not considering how quick their car was start of the season. They just don't. I don't know if they've got any updates coming in, but they seem to have also engine issues, because obviously they turned down all the engines at Mexico, and it's liable that Brazil's not exactly easy on engines either.
No.
So you're expecting Mercedes to have the bettering of them at Brazil, so that 40 points could be turned around quite quickly.
Yeah, that's my thinking as well. And Mercedes has drivers that are quite on it. George came down a little bit from the first 3 quarters of the season. He seems to be having a little bit more of a difficult time, but he's still been racking up the points. And I don't know. I think both Ferrari and Charles are already checked out for the next season, and I don't know. I don't see Carlos being able to do anything about it. So,
yeah, I've got feelings much the same.
Yeah, the most interesting of the two battles is the next one. So Alpine and McLaren, they are separated by only 7 points, and it's the battle of the team that has a very fast car but a very unreliable car, and the team that has one driver that is able to score points.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because McLaren has 146 points, and 111 of those are from Lando Norris. It's
Yeah.
uh
They need Danny to turn up like he did in Mexico for the next couple of next two races, don't they?
yeah, and that's exactly my I'm not going to say hope, I'm going to say doubt. One if Alpine can make their engines last enough for them to finish the races and actually get some points. And the other is if Daniel is going to show up to the races or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm alright.
At a moment there.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a moment. If you want to see what happened, you'll have to go and watch the video. And it might not be the last time it happens this podcast. So yeah, I don't know. Alonso had very harsh words for Alpine last race. Not only last race, but last race was like the culmination of, let's say, frustrations that he had. The theory is that with the engine regulations being frozen, this year you had the last specification of engine that you could do before 2026. Apart from changes to the power unit that related to reliability. So what Alpine might have done is basically do a very risky new concept and get more horsepower. The spread of all engines right now from the best one to the worst one, they estimate that it's like 10 horsepower. So they risked a little bit on that and then deal with the reliability and making changes on that part of the engine afterwards. So that's what might be happening here, I think.
Yeah, they've gone for make a fast engine reliable instead of trying to make a reliable engine fast. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah,
he's
basically that. And I mean, Alonso is now seeing that he's not going to take collect the fruits of his work, basically, because he's off.
Yeah. And yeah, he must be. Well, I don't think he'll be regretting it because I'm sure he's going for other reasons to Aston, but they're not really firing that well at the moment either.
Yeah, let's be honest, they've been a lot better in the second half of the season. And they might, I don't know, it's a team that it's evolving, but again, I don't think that he's going to take advantage of his work at Aston Martin either, while he is or seems to be in the top of his game right now. He's like 42, 43 years old, so it will eventually catch up to him. Age, I'm saying.
Yeah. But then if you look through Alonso's career, he had his time at Renault, won his championships, went to McLaren, and then, okay, we'll forgive the McLaren era because him and Lewis didn't really get on, shall we say.
Oh.
But then you look everywhere, he's then gone, Ferrari's the team to be at, he's jumped ship and gone to Ferrari. And then they've struggled, and he's built the team right, and then gone, oh, this is rubbish, and left. And the following year, the car's awesome. And he seems to have this habit of jumping ship just season too soon, and then the people that come in behind him have great cars, and he's always like, oh, when I was there, it was shit. So, but he doesn't seem to hang around that extra year.
Yeah, and I actually, in retrospective, and I watched a bit of a few videos about those seasons that it did with Ferrari, and we often equate Mercedes' domination of F1 with Red Bull's the 4 championships that they won. And it was not even it was not on the same galaxy. Like Red Bull, like I think it was 2013 they were really dominant, but the previous years it's like Alonso gave Vettel a run for his money until the end of the season, until the last round.
Yeah.
So it was not really the same thing, and he was able to almost win 2 or 3 championships with Ferrari. So yeah,
with a rubbish car.
Yeah, supposed to be a rubbish car. Do we really think it's a rubbish car? Because let's face it, who was his teammate? Felipe Massa, after his horrible accident at Hungaroring. Yeah,
and he, let's be honest, he was never the same driver after that.
No.
And you can't blame him for that.
No, it was horrible. Yeah, if you guys don't know, Massa, this was 09, and it was 09 in Hungary, and a spring off of Barrichello's Brawn came off. The suspension, I think it was rear suspension, came off the car and hit Felipe Massa's helmet straight. It was straight in the helmet, right at the side of his visor.
At full speed.
At full speed on the qualifying lap. And he just checked out, basically. He was basically unconscious from that moment, and even had a crash after that, and with his foot buried on the throttle. It's horrible visions. Yeah, huge shunt. And he didn't race for the rest of the season. I think Marc Genet drove for a couple of races, and then someone else. I don't really remember. Fisichella. It was Fisichella. It was Fisichella. I think it was Fisichella. So yeah, when he came back the next year, 2010, I don't think he was the same driver.
No, you can't be after an incident like that, can you? I mean, that was it was a 1 in a million freakish thing, but I suppose any good thing is he probably didn't see it coming. It's the only
no chance.
There was nothing to be fear aspect of it, but yeah,
that's what impresses me even more about Mika Häkkinen, because it was not the same kind of accident, but it was like a similar kind of thing. It was a head injury, and he was able to then come back and win 2 world championships. So yeah, those guys are built differently.
yeah, it's amazing what you can get away with.
Yeah, Mika tells the story about when he did his first test with the McLaren after the accident, and when he turned up to the pits, the mechanics were the first time that they saw him after the accident, and he was all swollen and the scars and all that, and he remembers everyone just like staring at him, at how he was. But yeah, his mentality was basically, I have to be 100% from the first lap. So he went full throttle, full guns to the metal, and on the first lap. And it was his way of knowing for himself if he could still do it. But yeah, I think even him, he says that he was not really the same driver after that, but he was one of those talents that was one of those drivers that was so talented that even after a accident like that, he was able to basically be amazing.
Yeah, I mean his raw speed was just unparalleled, just brutally quick.
Yeah. And his famous first qualifying, beating your
Senna,
hero, Senna, and Senna just going to him and ask him how he was winning. I don't know how much time it was. It was at Estoril on the last corner. He was gaining an insane amount of time for Senna, and Senna asking him what you're doing there, and he just said, "Big balls."
Big balls.
So yeah.
Mic drop. See you later.
I don't think Senna was too impressed by that.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, coming back to Alpine and McLaren. So yeah, let's see. It's I don't really know how to call it, because when you have unreliability as an equation and has a possible consequence for a battle for something, it's tough to call, let's say.
Yeah, I think if they were to finish, you've got to put the fight will be between Lando and
both Alpines
and Fernando, so they'll sort of cancel each other out into being able to outscore each other. And then what Alpine currently have in their pocket is the fact that Ocon isn't slow, and he's not much slower than Alonso, and he's not finishing much too far behind Alonso. And well, poor old McLaren. To take it, we all love Danny Ricciardo, but if it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes P17 or something silly like that at this next race. And his answer will be, I don't know, I just don't know what's happening, but we'll work on it and we'll find it. It's like, just not good enough.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be the reason Alpine beat them.
Yeah, and I don't think actual Daniel ever went that well at Brazil, so
no,
I don't remember him being special there. Neither at Abu Dhabi, so yeah. Let's see,
no,
but
it doesn't bode well.
Yeah.
But then Lando needs a good, strong finish. It might be enough just Lando on his own if the Alpines still have their reliability issues.
Yeah, let's not forget that Lando was the only driver to have a podium this season apart from the top 6. Yeah. So, yeah, he might Lando it into a podium again. So, that's the other thing that we can have is Lando just turning up and dragging I'm going to swear, shitbox into a podium position or a 4th place, something like that.
And then the last few years, notoriously, they've had bad weather around the race time in Sao Paulo, so it could well be a wet, dry race, which seems to be the form the last few times there. So we know Lando likes those conditions. But so does Alonso. I don't know. It could be.
You just reminded me of last year's Sochi Grand Prix. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to cry after the podcast.
Yeah, that was a hard one.
Yeah. Hopefully McLaren say to him that rain is definitely coming this time. I think they learned their lesson.
Yeah, but I think it'd be difficult for them to turn around and not take the driver's thing in that time. End of the day, they can tell him whatever they want, but if he doesn't want to come in,
yeah,
he just doesn't turn the wheel. And when you're that close to winning your first GP, I think it's something you go, I'll be able to do it. I can do it. And then when you get Bambi on ice and you go, fuck.
Yeah, but actually in Sochi, the thing I don't really know because we don't really know because we're not inside the team. But even the team was like, we could have been a little bit more
assertive with him.
And he said that if they were really assertive and told them, rain is coming and it's going to rain a lot and you're going to need wet tires, you're not going to be able to keep it on track. That you would have come in. And that's what Mercedes did to Hamilton.
Yeah.
But
then it's also, if remember, is it a different engineer? Did he have a different engineer last year to the year before?
Yeah.
Because I know he's changed a couple of engineers.
Yeah, the engineer they had went to IndyCar.
I think so. You sit there and you go, Lewis has had Bono for the last 8 years. Or 11 years, I think it is total. But so you sit there and there's that trust that is built over time. And Lando's got a new guy every year, basically. And when he says you've got to come in, it's wet. You've already done so many races with the guy. You've got that trust has to be built, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. I'll just say it like this: if Ricardo didn't score any points this year, with only Lando's points, McLaren would still finish P5 comfortably this season. So that tells you a lot about this season for the McLaren team. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about sim racing for a moment, because we had our first round of the TWR Sprint Championship. That it's TWR is a sim racing team and community, and me and Earl are the founders, admins, bosses, dictators, whatever you want to call, or and it went pretty well, apart from a little bit of a hiccup somewhere that I'm not going to say whose fault it was, but I even turned my finger the right way. Even that worked. So yeah, but it went really well. Not everyone that registered showed up, but almost everyone showed up for the race, and it was a fun race. No real big incidents, no reports.
No, everyone behaved themselves.
Yeah, everyone behaved, and we have 2 little adjustments to the regulations. So we're now, from now on, this came from a small error when we created the second server, that the server came out with open qualifying instead of the usual iRacing close qualifying, but everyone seemed to like that a lot. I actually loved it, absolutely loved it. It's a nice change from the usual close qualifying iRacing thing, and
it's another variable, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not just doing a hot lap, you're doing a hot lap and you're trying to, much like in F1, you're trying to find a gap, you're trying to find the space, and the only difference is the speed difference between the two classes is immense.
Yeah. So LMP2s and GT3s.
So yeah, it's definitely and there's going to be times where your lap's going to be ruined by someone, and there's times when you're going to ruin someone else's lap because you're not going to pull over because you're on a lap. So yeah, it's another dimension, and it's a bit more real life, a bit more realistic. So
I actually my qualifying was very, very intense because I didn't understand that you could actually do like
full 10 minutes.
The full 10 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was the 3 laps again. And I didn't know that you had another 2 minutes after the 10 minutes, so you could actually finish your last, if you started before the checkered flag. The last lap you could actually do. So I was kind of throwing the towel. I was P2, I think. Thiago had the run on me, and then I had a slower LMP2, not GT3, LMP2 in front of me, and I just let him go, and I thought I had a big gap, enough of a gap for him to do another one. But then I finished my last lap. I finished like 0.2 of a second from him, so it was right to the line. And I had a GT3 car. I had to lap a GT3 car on the last corner on the inside, so I couldn't go all the way to the outside. So it was like very fun, and I got pole, so that was awesome.
That's why it was fun.
No, but you know the thing of managing gaps and having to take into account slower cars and different classes and all that stuff. Yeah, thinking. You have to think. It's not just, you don't have to only think about breaking points and lines. You have to think about more stuff. So yeah, it was very fun. And the only the other regulation change that we had, some drivers seem to be a little bit more comfortable with having a incident limit. Not that it was a problem on this occasion, but everyone seemed to think that it was a good idea. So now we have a 12 incident limit, and then and you get a drive-through, and then every 8 incidents after that. No disqualifications like you have on the iRacing one, but yeah, only drive-throughs. But we have an incident limit right now. So yeah, those are the only 2 really differences.
Big changes.
So if you want to join us and come have fun with us, next race is going to be Sunday, Road America. You can click the Discord link that we have on the show notes to join our Discord. There's a form there. If you have any questions, just ask there. Don't forget to, when you enter, to go to the rules channel and read and accept the rules to have access to the entire server. So yeah, it's until the end of the month, every Sunday at 9 p.m. GMT. So yeah, it's our first venture into championship organizing in iRacing, and apart from that, we had 2 teasers, and I'm only going to say the names of the championships that we're going to organize for 2023. So this championship that we're doing, it's the TWR Sprint, and the 2 championships that we're going to do next year are going to be the TWR Endurance and the TWR Time Attack.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing that we're going to say about that for now. we'll announce
Join the Discord to find more.
Yeah, join the Discord to find more, and we'll announce it there before. And it's the first place that we announce everything. It's on the Discord server. Then you're going to, after a bit of time, you're going to see that on our social media, and then finally we'll talk about it here. We'll use this platform as well because we can.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all for now and for today. I hope you guys liked our little conversation. Follow the show, like and comment and rate the show everywhere if you can. You can follow the show at Bump Draft Pray with an A in every social media platform. You can email us at bdappodcast@gmail.com. I've been Pedro Barbosa. You can find me on Twitter, Pedro Barbosa SR. And with me I had Earl Goddard, and you can find him at Earl Goddard with 2 Z's in Twitter. So thank you for listening, watching, and all of that stuff. And see you next week.
See you later.
Bump, Draft and Pray is an independent podcast, and the music was by Letting Punks Know.